You won't believe what happened on this flight. The plane had barely leveled at 35,000 feet when the trouble started. Mr. Thompson, a dignified elderly black man, was settling into his window seat, adjusting his reading glasses and carefully placing his briefcase in the overhead compartment. He looked serene, completely unaware of the small group of kids seated a few rows ahead who had already noticed him. At first, their whispers were subtle, just faint giggles, but within minutes it escalated. One of the older kids elbowed another and muttered, "Look at him, so old." A snicker echoed down the aisle. Another child, younger and bolder, leaned back and intentionally kicked Mr. Thompson's seat. He winced but stayed composed. Passengers nearby started to notice the commotion, exchanging uneasy glances. The kids began mocking him openly now, using ageist and racial jokes, thinking it was a game. Mr. Thompson tried to ignore them, continuing to read, but the tension in the cabin was rising. Flight attendants moved past, checking on passengers, but the kids were clever, scattering whenever authority approached. Their parents were busy on their phones, oblivious to the escalating harassment. A flight attendant, Marcus, noticed the scene and approached. He crouched slightly, speaking softly to the children. "Please, this behavior is not acceptable. You need to respect your fellow passengers." The kids rolled their eyes and laughed, dismissing him. Marcus straightened, his face firm. "I mean it. Stop now or I'll have to get your parents involved." They scoffed, clearly not taking him seriously. Mr. Thompson, sensing the futility of polite intervention, decided it was time to assert himself. He rose from his seat, calm but deliberate. "I am asking you, no, I am telling you to stop harassing me," he said. His voice was measured, confident, yet carried an unmistakable authority. The cabin fell silent. For a moment it was as if time had slowed. All eyes were on him, some sympathetic, some shocked. The children, undeterred, laughed again. One of the boys shoved his backpack against Mr. Thompson's knee, almost knocking over his drink. The man's patience, however, remained intact. He took a deep breath, then slowly, deliberately looked at each child in turn. "You have no idea the struggles I've faced, the lessons I've learned, or the battles I've fought. And yet you feel empowered to mock me because of my age, my race, my appearance. Shame on you." The words hung in the cabin. Passengers were murmuring quietly among themselves. Even the parents now looked up from their phones, noticing for the first time what was happening. Marcus approached again, this time flanking the children with a second flight attendant. "Sir, ma'am," he said to the parents, "your children are harassing another passenger. This is unacceptable. We need to resolve this before landing." One parent muttered something about children being kids, but Marcus held his ground. "No, this crosses the line." As the tension escalated, another passenger, Mr. Lewis, a middle-aged businessman, stood up. He had been quietly observing the events unfold. He approached Mr. Thompson and whispered, "Sir, you've handled yourself with incredible dignity, but let me assist." He pulled out his phone and discreetly contacted the pilot, explaining the severity of the situation. The pilot nodded and initiated an onboard security protocol, coordinating with authorities at the arrival airport. Meanwhile, the kids, sensing the seriousness, grew quiet. Their laughter faded into nervous whispers. One little girl, probably 7 or 8, whispered to her mother, "Why is everyone looking at us?" The mother shrugged, clearly embarrassed but unsure how to intervene. Mr. Thompson returned to his seat, visibly calm but alert. Marcus stayed nearby, offering him water and checking if he was okay. "Are you all right, sir?" he asked. Mr. Thompson nodded, a faint smile of appreciation crossing his face. The other passengers began offering quiet support, nods, thumbs-ups, even one elderly woman softly applauding his composure. As the flight continued, subtle acts of kindness spread throughout the cabin. Passengers shared small items with Mr. Thompson: snacks, magazines, a blanket when the air conditioning got cold. People whispered stories to each other about their own grandparents or elders, creating a small but noticeable wave of solidarity. Hours passed. The plane hit turbulence and the stress tested everyone's nerves, yet the cabin had a sense of unity now. Even the children, now subdued, started to reflect on their behavior. Mr. Thompson, reading quietly again, occasionally glanced around, acknowledging the subtle support without needing to speak. By the time the plane began its descent, the story had taken on multiple layers. The bullying that had started it all, the quiet courage of a young flight attendant, the intervention of a fellow passenger, and the transformation of a cabin of witnesses into supporters of decency and respect. As the plane landed, security and airline staff were ready to address the children and their parents. Mr. Thompson gathered his belongings calmly. Marcus escorted him to the front of the plane, ensuring he was comfortable. "Thank you for standing by," Mr. Thompson said softly to Marcus. The flight attendants nodded, proud of having upheld dignity and justice in the sky. The passengers filed out, many exchanging stories and reflections about what had just transpired. For Mr. Thompson, it was a journey that had tested patience, courage, and resilience. For the children, it was a lesson they wouldn't forget, one that would echo in conversations at home for weeks. And as the plane emptied, the cabin seemed to carry the invisible weight of a story that had happened at 30,000 feet, proof that one person's dignity, coupled with the courage of strangers, could transform chaos into an unforgettable lesson in humanity.